We're talking Ready or Not today. We're going to go down the road of a whole bunch of Samara Weaving movies. Gene was wandering around the streaming services and came across
Yep.
Samara Weaving.
Yeah, I came across this movie, Ready or Not, and I noticed that the main actress, lead actress, her name was Samara Weaving, and I just thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, the parents of this woman must be the coolest parents in the world, naming their daughter after a homicidal psycho child killer from the movie The Ring."
Right.
And I thought, that's awesome. I've got to watch this movie. Yeah, so we're going to go down this string of Samara. I guess Samara Weaving has made this string of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's this one, Ready or Not, and then there's the one called The Babysitter, which is actually available on Netflix, and actually I watched that. And there's another one called Mayhem. Mayhem with Stephen Yeun in it.
Yeah.
You know,
she
my
did,
gosh. So we'll get next few weeks or so, we're on the Samara Weaving bandwagon or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a certain group of actresses and actors that really do well in horror films, horror comedy, you know, and it's Linnea Quigley's one that I think comes to mind immediately, where I'm okay doing these horror movies and these horror comedies, and they're right for it. And I think Samara
Right.
Weaving, as we continue to watch, because I've seen all three of these films that Gene just mentioned, and yeah, she's a perfect fit for this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
but we'll get into it.
Yes.
Gene, what's your initial thoughts of Ready or Not?
Yeah, Ready or Not. Yeah, you just approach it, and it's a big budget movie, big budget sets and all that stuff. So, yeah, and you know something, it's pretty good. I like it. Like I've watched it twice. I watched the first time, you know, just me. I rented the thing on Apple movies, I guess what you call it. Yeah, and it's not bad. There's some stuff going on. It's definitely like horror. It's not horror in the serious horror or the scary horror like Saw or, you know, one of those movies that were some of those French movies that we've seen.
Well, it does do here's a 5-minute sequence where we're really punishing Samara Weaving.
A little bit, but it's like the tone. The tone of the movie is not dark and heavy like some of those movies,
right?
You know, and so it's light. And actually, the second time I watched it just last night with my wife and my 13-year-old son, and my 13-year-old son, there were parts of it that were super suspenseful, and he had to like get up, and he almost left the room, but it was kind of funny. But he really enjoyed. He watched the whole thing, and he really enjoyed it. You know that the protagonist Grace, you know, she survives, and you know there's certain interesting, you know, themes going on here, and like some great symbolism involving Grace is marrying this guy named Alex, and Alex is part of this like demented family that's made the pact with the bad guy, and the terms of the pact is that the bad guy will keep this family in wealthy riches as long as every, I don't know, 30 years or so, they perform this human sacrifice.
Right.
But I guess they have to also kill lots of goats because they have this barn full of goats.
Yeah, they mentioned that.
Yeah, they do. They gotta slit some goat throats. Yeah. and so Addie McDowell's in this thing, and so she is one of the parents of Alex and Alex's brother Daniel. Daniel, Alex's brother, plays an interesting character. He's like, at the beginning of the movie, Grace is like, "Oh, I'm joining this family, and my husband's drunk brother is always hitting on me," and that's Daniel. And Daniel ends up actually, saving her. So it's kind of an interesting little character twist there. But this movie is wildly entertaining. It's just fun. You know, would I watch it again? Oh yeah, I'd watch it again.
So the basic story, Gene
Grace.
is Samara Weaving plays this character. She's been dating Grace, and then she's dating Alex. And there's obviously some distance between Alex and the rest of his family. At one point, he even was like talking about maybe we should just continue to live in sin or elope all this stuff. But apparently the family dynamics are you must get married on the property and then play this game at midnight, and then they play a game, and sometimes it's just Old Maid, or sometimes it's chess, or sometimes it's checkers or whatever. But if you pull the hide and seek card, that's when it's go time, and the rest of the family then has to kill the
Right,
Samara
yeah,
Weaving
you're given
character.
100 seconds to hide, and then they play this record. And I guess it lasts 100 seconds.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and the movie, it's a little clever because it leaves little clues, because Grace asks the question, well, can I win? And the guy, the dad, Tony, he unwittingly says, well, okay, if you can make it till sunrise,
Right.
And so I don't think
then he's like, good luck.
yeah, I don't think he really meant to say that, but that's how she wins. And of course, the movie plays out. She's the female, like all horror movies. She's the female survivor, and yeah. And I thought it was interesting. And my wife and I were talking about this, like why Grace didn't have any. There was no family representation on her side. There were no bridesmaids, or there was no family on her side during the ceremony. So I thought it was interesting that, and they approach it a little bit by saying that Grace was a foster child. She had been through a series of foster homes, which I could see that, if you go into all foster, touch on a little bit of reality here, but all foster care systems in the United States are chronically underfunded, and they mostly leave, if kids are in foster care, for the most part, they come out of that system damaged in some way. Those that don't come out of the damage definitely would have a lot of resilience. And so Grace seems pretty normal. So I would say she was one of those who came out of the foster care system with a lot of resilience. And that resilience helps her on this particular night.
Right. And so then the film kind of, Grace discovers quite soon that, this is not just hide and seek and they find me and everything's fine. Because there's a sequence where Grace has decided that, well, this is not the way I want to spend my wedding night, so I'm not going to hide anymore, and I'm just going to come out. And then Alex grabs her and is like, no, you don't understand what this game of hide and seek is. And then one of the other characters ends up killing one of these maids by accident.
Yeah, there's a woman, I think Charity is her name, but all these guys, they don't know how to handle weapons on any level. So you put this pistol, this old-fashioned pistol.
Right, they're all kind of ancient weapons.
Yeah, this old-fashioned pistol in Charity's hands. And so she shoots at the first thing that she sees moving, and she kills one of the servants.
Right.
And it's like, and then that Grace sees this servant getting shot and her bleeding out, and then she realizes, oh my, this is what's happening now.
Well,
this is what's going on.
The servants are kind of used as to establish the kind of the dark comedy that's going on here, because there's three of them.
Yeah.
And of course, they all are the ones that get killed one after the other.
And they all die.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, of course, the rest of the family are like, oh, that was my favorite one. That was my favorite one.
I know. Yeah.
And there's another great scene just alluding to the fact that they don't even know how to use these weapons. Is one of them is a crossbow, and the guy he's looking up YouTube how to use your
sitting in the bathroom.
Get to know your crossbow.
Yeah. He's sitting in the bathroom because he really doesn't want to play. But his look, this was a pretty funny part. Yeah.
Yeah. And at one point, and there's this aunt who is just amazing in this film. I don't remember what her name was.
Helene,
But she's got this I don't even know how old she would be in this movie, like 70 or something.
220.
And she's got ancient. This spiky punk rock hair.
Yeah, this short little thing, but she just wants death.
Yeah, she is all in, and she's got this axe and keeps talking about tradition.
Yeah, because after the second maid is killed by that crossbow because nobody knows how to use it, and so they accidentally shoots it, and it shoots this other maid in the mouth. Oh my gosh. And of course she's dying and she's making noises, and then Helene, the old aunt, she's
trying to have
she has this big axe, like this big medieval axe, like those when you see like the executioners have, like with the black hood, and she chops the head off this poor little.
Well, I just like that scene though because
she's making too much noise.
She's trying to have this big dialogue scene where she's like, it's all about tradition, and you hear in the background,
she keeps interrupting.
She's all gurgling up, and finally she's had enough. She's like, all right, I'm just gonna axe you.
Right, she can't finish her little monologue.
So that's kind of the level of comedy we're dealing with here. Nothing like slapsticky or just drop dead, comedic lines. It's just kind of weaved in throughout the film as Samara is doing everything she can to live. And I really do like Samara Weaving a lot. I talked about a person that I thought was miscast in another movie because there's no way she could do all of this stuff to stay alive, right? She couldn't overpower anyone, or she couldn't handle a weapon. Samara Weaving to me fits in to the category of like Kate Beckinsale from Underworld, or even Sigourney Weaver to a point, even though Sigourney Weaver's a little bit more muscular. But Samara Weaving's a pretty tiny person, but when she's hoisting the gun, Mila Jovovich, I would put her into that category as well, where I can actually believe that, yes, you can get through this stuff. You do have the strength and determination. I think she does a really great job with her character.
Key on the word determination there. Yeah. Although she picks up this elephant gun with this gargantuan bullet.
I know.
And I'm just thinking, you better not fire that thing. That thing is going to go right through your shoulder. And it turns out she attempts to use it against the butler.
Yeah.
And of course, all the shells are inert. They're just for show.
But that was an example, too, I think, of what I was just talking about, where, she was going to kill that guy. She pulled the trigger.
She pulled the trigger. That guy would have been blown in half.
She was going to do it. And
her shoulder would have been broken.
And she really had this will to live. And there's a sequence where she gets shot in the hand by this small child.
Yeah, with that same pistol that Charity dropped earlier.
And she falls into this pit, which happens to be where they dispose of the goats and the other people they've had to kill.
And the bodies, yep.
And she's down in there. She's got a bullet all the way through her hand, and she has to climb back up these rickety steps that are falling apart, ladder. And there's this bolt or nail sitting up on the top, and at one point she has to force her bullet-ridden hand onto that nail. And I loved that sequence because her acting there, her vocal intonations of pain were amazing in that
I thought it was spot on. Yeah, it was great.
Good. And then she has to pull her hand off of that nail. And
she's coming up the ladder, and the ladder's this rickety thing. And, of course, nobody goes down there ever, right? So the ladder breaks. So she's holding on not to fall back into this pit with her good hand, her right hand.
Right.
And then she just throws her other hand up there, in just wild attempt to get a grab hold. And, of course, her hand goes right through that nail. Yeah. But she can't let go because she's got to pull herself up.
Right. And then right after that, she runs to this fence, this old school Victorian fence with all sorts of sharp edges on it. She breaks just enough of that fence to kind of start forcing herself through. A car is coming. Of course, the fence is cutting into her skin.
Yeah, of course.
Forces herself out of there. So this was the sequence of just kind of let's abuse Samara Weaving I was talking about. But then I liked the scene, too, where the car slows down and it's some punk kid and he's like, get out of the street, loser, and speeds off. And she goes off on this just profanity-laced little 15-second sequence. And I'm just like, this feels real to me, even though it's a little movie. It's not anything too great. But I'm like, Samara Weaving is knocking it out of the park with her acting right here.
Yeah, although I think some parts, I think in that part, I don't know. It's like if I'm driving down the road in my little Porsche, I see a woman covered in blood running and acting like she needs some help. Would I just roll down my window and say, get out of the street?
Well, but I think that...
I don't think so. I think I'm probably stopping.
But I think part of it, though, was about the uncaringness of somebody who has lots of money, a rich person.
Sure, the movie touches on that.
Right, you're assuming that everyone in kind of that area is super rich, and it's just, I'm not going to be inconvenienced by some peasant here, so get out of the road.
Right. There is a line in the movie that says rich people are different. Yes. And are they different? I think our culture tries our best to make them different. However, as much as I think they try, of course they're not. They're just regular people going through regular people stuff.
Well, but I think their mindsets can be different, right? I mean, I don't think Mitt Romney understands what it is to be an at-risk person, right?
No, not on any level.
Can't empathize with somebody like that, or I mean, that's, I think, and sorry everyone, I'm going to talk about Taylor Swift for a second, but I think one of the reasons Taylor Swift is so beloved right now is, she's richer than all of us probably combined, but she still does things like cleans up after the party of the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And can seem to really relate to just a regular person.
Yeah, and if you want to go down that a little bit, like Taylor Swift, oftentimes
not too much.
Yeah, oftentimes what she does is that she's from Kentucky, right? So she'll invite girls to her house, and she'll have this big thing, Taylor Swift, in her living room, and then she'll be surrounded by like 25 girls, just regular people, and just talking about regular stuff, and like who else does that? And I think people recognize that, and I think it's her popularity, and it's her appeal.
So Taylor, if you're listening, Taylor, if you're listening, give us a call. We'll have you on the show. But anyway, back to the movie. I do like the sets too. I mean, this movie was only like $6.5 million budget. But because
they pulled it off,
because they've got those awesome sets, it looks way more expensive than it was. That house, that mansion, is a pretty cool, creepy. Yeah, I like the underground section where apparently the servants have to go and all that. To get to
that's like they have little tiny corridors between the main hallways, but they're not decorated at all. But they're narrow. But the servants' passageways, they can get to anywhere in the house, kind of unseen, which again is part of the rich people versus everyone else kind of thing. We keep the servants hidden at all times.
Right. They can get around the house without ever being
seen. Yeah. And that's the way you want it, I guess.
Yeah.
This family definitely, they feel like they're all elite.
Well, and the overriding thing here, the reason the family are so aggressive in trying to kill the Samara Weaving character is they believe that if they don't accomplish this ritual by dawn, something terrible will befall them all.
Right. And it's it's great just because Grace does a great job, because dawn comes, the sun comes up, and this Helene, this ancient woman, she opens the curtain. So there she's made it. There it is. And then all of a sudden everyone starts screaming, "I'm gonna die!" But nothing happens.
Right.
They're all just standing there, and then they're just like looking around, and they're almost about to say, "Yeah, Grace, never mind, sorry." But then, lo and behold, it just takes a little while.
Right.
Helene is the first one. I give credit to my son because it's 13, but at the very beginning of the movie, he's like, "What's going to happen in this movie? Are these people going to blow up?" I didn't say anything, but he called it. Yeah, and Helene, she blows up. Yep. Yeah, blood everywhere, just blows up. Like a grenade, big grenades in her body. Right. Boom. And then all of a sudden, all the other ones start to blow up. All the wives and the two little bratty kids, they blow up.
Right. Well, the director was kind enough to have them run out of the room before.
Yes. The mom.
So you just see
the mom, Charity, the one that couldn't shoot. She runs out with the two of her sons, and they die off screen. But you see like the remnants of their
spray.
The spray.
Right. If you've seen Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, you'll be in good company here because it's very chunky and bloody and everything as they're blowing up.
Yeah, and then Alex is in his true scumbag nature. He tries to play off, because what's keeping him alive is a relationship with Grace, But then she pulls the ring off her finger and says, "I want a divorce." And she throws the ring at him. As soon as the ring hits his body, he blows up.
Yeah, and of course then she's just covered in blood and everything else, and.
It's and my wife commented on this, and I think it's a good point, because this movie is fun, it's good, but there's some deeper things going on here. I think the separation of rich people versus everyone else, and how the rich, they think they're better than everyone. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about that, but there's another line in the movie where they say that if your family, quote unquote, like if your family tells you something is okay, then you'll do it.
Yes.
Because the kids, they're just kids. These two little boys, They should be adorable little kids just running around having fun. But one of them gets a gun and shoots Grace because he just thinks that's just what I do.
That's what you're supposed to.
And it's just like on our political time that we live in, it just like poses some really, really deep questions about our culture, our society.
Well, and even Alex at one point is talking to Andy McDowell, his mother, saying, "Yeah, I thought slitting the throats of goats was normal until I met Grace and realized this stuff isn't normal."
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then there's finally the thing that there's some good symbolism going on with Grace's wedding dress. It's interesting because at the beginning, of course, she gets married and her dress is all beautiful, a lot of like tulle and stuff. And then as you watch the movie, as she progresses through her journey of survival, her dress degrades. Like she tears parts of it off. She gets shot in the head. She tears another part off, uses it as a bandage. Eventually by the end of the movie, she is covered with blood, but the dress, it's not even white anymore. It's just this black. Blood encrusted thing, but there's a progression. There's definitely progression. So as she tries to survive, her dress becomes more and more degraded. In a way, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a comment on beauty, because certainly like Grace and the two sisters, Emile and Charity, they're all like really pretty. But then Grace, her beauty kind of degrades. She sacrifices that to survive. So I don't know. It's just interesting to think about her dress and how it changes.
Well, I mean,
because my final thing is like probably as they're making the movie, of course they just didn't make the movie in one night. Right. There had to be different versions of the dress, right? So she'd put on the dress that's perfect, and then she'd put on the dress was slightly torn, the dress some blood, the dress with more blood, and finally the dress with a ton of blood. So it's interesting to watch the movie in terms of like her wedding dress.
Well, but I will point out that Samara Weaving still looks pretty damn good at the end of the movie. Right? It is Samara Weaving after all.
She's smoking a cigarette. Paramedic comes up to her and says, "Are you okay?" And it's just like, in-laws.
Right, the last line of the movie, yeah. In-laws.
In-laws, yeah. I had my little in-law moment, but we kind of made peace. So we're good now. So it was a little hot for a while, let me tell you.
So this movie, Ready or Not, it's there's nothing groundbreaking here. It's kind of different than a lot of movies we do on this show because there's no big we're going to spend a half an hour talking about some deep-seated themes or anything like that. It's a movie you can watch. It's a rainy Sunday and have a good time. And move totally on fun with the rest of your day, right? It's not.
But again, it's got little snippets of stuff
but
that you can think about.
We're not talking martyrs or anything like that, where there's just a lot of deep symbolism or a lot of underlying themes.
But like Martyrs is the tone of that movie is dark and really unsettling
and very serious.
Serious, and you just But
and so
this movie is totally different. The tone is just. Even though bad things are happening, it's lighthearted. And you realize it's bad heart. My 13-year-old son walked away from this just totally entertained. Yeah.
Right, you're not going to be traumatized and unable to sleep or anything. I mean, even the three servants that get killed, it's more comedy, black comedy than anything else. And
it reminded me of like what Resident Evil, one of them was a little dumbwaiter. And of course she doesn't get her head out of the way.
Right.
Remember that movie from Resident Evil? Like, she doesn't get her head out of the way. And,
Well, there's tons of movies like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Dumbwaiters or elevators or whatever.
Yeah.
But
and the gears are so strong. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's no way to save yourself. Although in this one, it's like, the house is ancient, and so I could see.
Oh yeah, they over-engineered it.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to break down. But no, a good movie. Definitely can watch it and just have a good time. And then, like I said, go on with the rest of your day and just have a smile on your face, maybe. The next movie, Gene, are we going to do Babysitter next?
Babysitters.
Okay, so we'll
do... the third one would be...
Mayhem.
With Stephen Yeun.
Yeah, so we're just going to do a couple... Samara Weaving shows here, and
total of 3, I think.
Yeah, I really like her. I think she's a good actress. I appreciate the fact that I'll take that movie. Cool. It's a little horror comedy. I'll do it because that's kind of what all 3 of these movies we just talked about are. And so, if you haven't seen Ready or Not, give it a shot. You're probably not going to be disappointed.
No, you're going to like it. There's nothing to really dislike in this movie.
Yeah. So anything else, Gene?
I don't know. I have a comment about Taylor Swift, but maybe not.
Oh, we'll save that for another
We'll save
time.
that for another day.
I do want to point out that we did.
But it's a very positive comment.
Oh, well,
yeah, I
good,
think it's why she's so popular now.
Well, she's a good person.
Yeah. And I think also, I'm just going to say it. I just think that what she embodies, and I think it's easy to see, is that she embodies like goodness, and she kind of pervades that. And if you look at our culture and what's happening now, I think our culture is lacking a lot of that. And so I think a lot of people are drawn to her because I think ultimately we really want those kind of leaders. We want leaders to set a good example, to be good themselves, and right now we're not getting a lot of that. So she's getting a lot of appeal.
Okay,
I think that's one of her enduring things. Anyway, I don't know why I went off on that.
Well, I mean, Taylor, if you could do a horror movie at some point so we could review you on this show, that would be great.
That would be awesome. A Taylor Swift and Samara Weaving.
Samara Weaving. And okay, very good. Yeah. Last point before we sign off, the Diagnonsense episode that we were guests of is up now on YouTube, so you can certainly, or any other streaming platform actually. It's the My House Podcast Network, Diagnonsense. I will put a link to it on this podcast, so awesome. Check that one out if you want to hear.
Yeah, we reviewed
The Shining.
The Shining. There was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, it is actually. I did listen to it. They did a good editing job on it, and it's definitely probably the most back and forth you'll get from Gene and I because for some reason he decided the movie was okay.
The movie is fine. Roger keeps comparing it to the book for some non-contextual reason.
Because
you
Gene,
can't do that. The movie's got to stand on its own.
The book gave Kubrick the whole playbook on how to make a good movie because it was right there. A great horror movie was right there, and he made something else that sucked.
That's Kubrick.
But anyway,
do whatever.
We got to get up.
He's still alive?
No, he has died, which is why I'm saying so many negative things about him because he would probably have some hit squad take me out. But we will catch you next week with another Samara Weaving movie. The Babysitter.
So which I have to throw in a quick plug because I used to live in California, Los Angeles. And The Babysitter, part of it, were filmed in El Segundo, right in front of El Segundo High School. And I used to live right across the street from that thing. Okay. So it was like, oh, man, it's like taking me back home. It was kind of awesome.
Well, that's awesome. So we'll catch you next week with that one. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.